For 50 years or so, I've been a global macro investor. And so I've seen the world and I've studied history. I look for the cause-effect relationships. And then I encountered, starting about, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, three things that happened that never happened in my lifetime before, but happened in the 1930s. And I think that they're at the heart of what's going on now, together with the pandemic, which will be something that'll come and that has come and will hopefully go. Of course, we're going to have a rebound. So if you look 1 year ahead, it's very likely that because of all of the stimulation, which took the form of debt creation and money printing, and at the same time, it's likely that the COVID effects will recede, and so there's going to be pent-up demand. However, that doesn't deal with the issue of the amount of debt that was created and money that was created. And that has been particularly the Federal Reserve, and when you print money, it has consequences. There is this income gap and the loss of the American dream, and we see it. I see the need for those kinds of things. The amount provided was about 5 to 7 times the amount that would have been needed to compensate everybody for their income losses. So it was a much larger distribution of money than was actually needed to deal with COVID, but I see those other needs, and I think they're bigger than that, in fact. So those needs are there, and that distribution took place in that way. The issue is, then where does the money come from, and what are the consequences of that? I think it's terrible to demonize anybody, whether they're rich or poor or anything. The country, by and large, created this environment of equal opportunity, and people who come along and come up with ideas and make that inevitably earn a lot of money and become rich. And at the same time, I do agree that the excesses of that gap need to be addressed in an important way. So let's not demonize everybody. I think the most important issue is to be bipartisan, to bring both sides together in a smart way. And I almost don't care what is done, just as long as the large population, the most people are benefiting from an economy that works well to produce sound finances and sound economic growth. I think that, however, that there is also a risk that if there's some actions taken, that it causes capital flight and it causes issues at a difficult time. Throughout history, when you have a bad economic situation and bad financial markets, and it hurts everyone, then naturally the capitalists are held to blame or scapegoated or whatever. We have a tendency to blame each other or to fight, and there's a polarity. The left becomes more extreme, then the right becomes more extreme, and you can't be in the middle. Mm-hmm. Because if you're in the middle, history has shown us, they say, hey, no, you have to decide one way or another. And then the antagonisms become greater. And that is what's happening today. Everybody's got their way that they want to fight for something. If the cause you're behind is more important than the system that resolves disagreements, the system is in jeopardy. If you read history and you look at the nature of this beast, this is dangerous. There has to be revolutionary change. It's unsustainable. There are issues that have to be resolved. How do you spend the money? How do you pay for the money? How do you educate people? There are big issues. and they have to be resolved, and they could either be resolved peacefully, or history has shown sometimes they produce conflict. That's called civil wars, different types of revolution. Maybe a peaceful revolution, such as that which occurred in the 1930s, maybe that. But in the 1930s, many countries did not have peaceful revolutions. In any case, what I'm trying to do, I have a principle, which is if you worry, you don't have to worry. And if you don't worry, you need to worry. And that's because if you worry about this direction that we seem to be heading in, then you will do the things that prevent that from happening. And if you don't worry and you watch it continue on and it worsens, that's worrisome. I think the taxes need to go up, and I think we need to divide it well. And I do think there's going to need to be, you're only going to at most cover half of the deficit, if you're lucky, with taxes. And that'll be a lot of taxes. And I think that that's necessary. The other half is probably going to have to be printed, but you have to be productive. So a lot of these moves in terms of that cannot be just wealth redistributive, but there are so many ways that we can use that money to be productive, such as in education. There's no better investment than in education. There are a couple of contentious issues, the most contentious issues. And it really has to do with containment of China. And that has to do with its globalization, its region, and it has to do with human rights. Taiwan, the one thing everybody agrees to on paper, but they actually don't necessarily agree on, in fact, is there's one China and Taiwan's part of China. And then we're dealing with technology. I mean, technology at the end of the day is the most important factor for economics and military. And then as regards, human rights issue, the Uyghurs and what that means, for example, there's a big irreconcilable difference because China, the United States, believes that it should affect that. And that's a big thing in the Biden administration. And at the same time, China believes it's a sovereignty issue, that the United States shouldn't meddle in their internal affairs any more than China should meddle in the United States. Those are the real issues. And they could come down to capital flows issues. And that would be, there are signs that could happen. And if that happens, it has a big global effect. Who will be superior in artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and other types of technology that will mean that if you win that race, you kind of win the whole enchilada.